Welcome everybody to the For the Love of Animals introductory webinar. Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Jenny. I'm from Lionheart Workshops and I'll be hosting this webinar. I have been working with Anna Breitenbach and Brad Laughlin in bringing their wonderful course into creation for the love of animals. I have also had the opportunity to learn from Anna at her in-person workshops out in the field in both Botswana and South Africa. Anna is an internationally acclaimed professional interspecies communicator and the founder of AnimalSpirit, an organization and service that is dedicated to bridging the gap between the non-human and human animals and creating harmony in this way. Anna is also the subject for the documentary, The Animal Communicator. Brad is a spiritual teacher and has been teaching for more than 20 years now. He's also the author of several books, his most recent being Living with Enlightenment, A Journey of Love, and his forthcoming book is called Waking the Yin Warrior. I love that title, which is about the rising power of the feminine energy in this world. He is the co-founder of the international organization Corelight, whose mission is to help awaken the global heart through both humanitarian service work and helping individuals to live increasingly in unconditional love. Both Anna and Brad are very passionate about and dedicated to the service of sacred activism. That is activism that is rooted in compassion. We also have some of our animal companions and friends joining us here today. You may hear the sound of Sasha, my dog, barking in the background, and you will hear the sound of some lovely birds in the background of Brad's apartment. You may even get a glimpse of Anna's beautiful cat, Ocean. During this webinar, we will delve deeply into some of the wisdom and the insights that are shared in For the Love of Animals, as well as the synergies between Brad's work as a spiritual teacher and Anna's work as an interspecies communicator, and how these ultimately really do come back together to the one path, and that is the path of heart, the path of unconditional love. As I listen to both Brad and Anna speaking, I have so many wonderful wow moments as this wisdom just drops in. Truly, truly profound. And I am sure that you are going to have many of these wow moments as well whilst listening to this webinar. You will also learn some of the techniques that Anna uses that help her and guide her into these states, these profound states of clear intuition and direct knowing. Anna's also going to share with us some of her real-time stories and case studies from her experiences and what it really takes to listen and to hear the language of the natural world, and how this really is a very natural skill for us humans. It is not something we are learning, it is something that we are remembering and relearning. Please do stay with us until the end of this webinar, because I will also be sharing with you some important information and registration details for the upcoming For the Love of Animals online course, which is being taught by both Anna and Brad. So thank you again so much for joining us here today. And Anna, Brad, hello and welcome. It's lovely to see you both again.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you both. So let's begin with how did you two actually meet?
Let's see, shall I start? Anna and I met many years ago. My life partner, Leslie Temple Thurston, and I are spiritual teachers, and we also have a great passion for animals, and we are interspecies communicators as well. And some mutual friends introduced us in South Africa. They said, "You've just got to meet this lady. She's amazing." So we share a mutual passion for what you said, Jenny, which is sacred activism, we call it. And that is serving the earth, serving the animals and ecosystems in the natural world, supporting, in fact, the first thing that brought us together was our mutual love of elephants. And our passion for supporting the elephants in various ways during the challenges that they face in our world. Anna, would you like to comment on that? I told a little, there's more to the story. I didn't tell the whole story.
Well, it was very unusual and wonderful to be able to spend the first day of meeting people in the flesh for the first time, to spend the first day in deeply meditative states for quite a bit at a time, simply opening ourselves to a deep state of listening to hear what elephants might need collectively at this time. And, you know, interspecies communication happens wherever we direct our attention. It could be to an individual animal, it's in our presence or not. It could be to a group or a herd of animals or a pack of animals, and it could be to what's commonly termed the collective consciousness of a certain species. And so we sat at Brad and Leslie's home and came into a deeply quiet and contemplative state to then silently, telepathically ask into that level of collective consciousness of elephants what they might need. And, you know, to be honest, we sat with pens and papers at the ready to write down the to-do list we imagined we might get, things to go and do. But the response from elephants was much more about energies and states of being that we could hold for them, like a prayer, really. And so out of that was born the elephant prayer circle, something that people in reading or feeling inside their hearts could simply add their human energy to, which on a quantum physics level, as has been proved by transcendental meditations for decades now, on a quantum physics level, does actually assist with the alignment of all the mysterious forces and the energies to increase the likelihood of that healthy outcome being the result. So it was a beautiful weekend, a long weekend that we spent together in the company of each other and the animals. And I was very impressed by, it was clear to me that Brad and Leslie and those living with him had already done a lot of their own work in clearing the channels that they are, that made what they were receiving and perceiving very crisp and clear, without any drama or projection. And that was a beautiful commonality to find with other two-leggeds, with other humans.
There was something that really stood out for me when watching a part of the course, and that was when you shared about some people that came to learn from you, and they were and you recognized that they had this incredible crystal clarity, and that when you spoke to them about that, they then mentioned Brad and Leslie and how the help that they had received from Brad and Leslie's teachings. And it really showed me, I really got it when you shared that story about how the synergy of the work that you both do, how beautifully it comes together.
Yeah, for most of us humans, we make a bigger deal of it than it is to connect energetically. We imagine ourselves to be separate. And I know that Brad's insights and research and offerings have a lot to do with actually dissolving the idea of the separate system, understanding what the system of separation looks like, and then getting us beyond that in our minds. And so for most people, connecting and falling into a state of oneness with an animal they want to communicate with, for most people it seems like there's a great divide to have to cross and a complicated telepathic bridge to build, and all sorts of mystery techniques or fancy skills or new age tools and all these sorts of things. And it just isn't like that. And yet the mind sometimes needs those fixins and those accessories to just kind of come to the party, And so it was noticeable when Leslie and Brad's students at the time were on my workshop, because it was the first time they had overtly deliberately trying to connect with an animal. But both the husband and wife, although they weren't married yet at that time, they just sat down, looked at the photograph of the animal I'd given to all workshop participants, closed their eyes, and were connected. And the information that they got was proved to be true. It was confirmed and validated by secret answers written in an envelope and so on. And even then, when they discovered that their answers were accurate from the animal, they didn't have this huge, emotional outburst or amazed surprise, because they were in tune with the quality of feeling when one is present with truth, or even just present. There's a quality of feeling that is very still and doesn't have any illusions of us being separate or having to have a wow moment. But it can be pretty cool and wow when our minds catch up with the possibility of what's real.
I just want to acknowledge that we've got doggies and kitties and birds, and there are all kinds of animals joining us during our call today.
You can hear my dog in the background.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's great. It's great. So, and I hope you can hear the birds on my side too, surrounded by birds here. So I was going to say, yeah, Anna, it's such a human experience, something we all experience, right? The feeling of separation. We feel we are separate individuals, separate from nature, separate from each other, separate from the earth. And I think the beauty of interspecies communication in general, but especially the work that you do, Anna, it shows when somebody experiences your work, and when somebody tries interspecies communication, we bridge that gap. We realize that our thoughts and feelings are shared, not just with each other, but with the natural world as well. And that starts us on a whole new path if we haven't experienced that before. When you realize that we are all part of the web of life. The spirit that moves in all things is inside each of us, just as it is in the animals and ecosystems and the rest of the natural world.
Don't you think it's maybe easier for us to be sort of beckoned into those states of being by animals, by non-human animals? Because we, our own love for them usually is a lot gentler and not filled with the same stories as we tend to fill our relationships with other humans. And I found that people's genuine care for their pets, for example, or for an aspect of nature, is a beautiful sort of doorway through which we humans are invited back into directly knowing ourselves to be part of that web of life and part of that community.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the greatest gifts that we receive from our pets and other animals is unconditional love.
So Brad, that just brings me, I really would like to ask, why the name For the Love of Animals?
So yeah, I think we were really just starting to talk about that. We, Anna and I have been such close friends for so long, and we've realized that this is a path to the heart. The subtitle of the course is a call to the heart, and so we were talking about what kind of a difference can we make in the world today at a time when there's so much angst about the state of the world, and people are being encouraged to separate and to live in fear. And we thought, well, what can we do? And so we thought, well, gosh, animals are such a great opening into the heart, that wouldn't it be wonderful to offer a course called For the Love of Animals, to encourage, instead of fear and separation, to encourage love and connection. So that's why the course name, that's why we're offering the course, essentially. There's a lot more to say, but that's it in a nutshell, I think.
And the For the Love of Animals is that sort of invitation, or that cause, that motivation that can help us move forward into more loving states of being and to act out of compassion. But it can also be interpreted as the effect, or one of the results of us humans coming, out of states of separation into more oneness. One of the results is that we get to bestow more love upon the animals. And so, the love of animals in whatever way that may express is also one of the happy and productive results of us being reconnected.
Yeah, they do, don't they? Animals have a way of changing our state. I know it happens with me, and I've seen it happen with others. It's just, they really reflect back to us this beautiful innocence and that still mind that you often speak about, Anna, that presence. They're present. They're just so present. And there's so much talk already about love, and the whole course really is centered about love and the path to the heart and the call to love. And the title of your first module, What's Love Got to Do with It? Can you share a little bit about that? And I really want to get into there's love and then there's unconditional love. Share with me, please, the difference.
Well, I'm happy to start with that one. What I would say is, yeah, you're absolutely right, Jenny. There's conditional love and unconditional love, and really conditional love, I would say, is a bit of an oxymoron, right? Because if it's conditional, then it's not love. It's not really love. It's something else entirely. And I would also add, unconditional love is a little bit redundant because love is unconditional. So unfortunately, in our world, we're taught from a very early age that love is all kinds of things. And we later learn that it's really not about those things. It's not about worry, for example. We're taught that to worry is to love, and we're taught all kinds of things. And we'll talk a lot about that in the course. We'll talk more about that. But really, what we could say about unconditional love is that it's a place where the heart is always open. With conditional love, the heart opens and closes like a valve, depending on the stimuli we get from the world. And so there is this ability to keep the heart open all the time. And we call that unconditional love. And it's something rarely, I think that humans rarely experience. It's something we all long to receive. But it's something that's very hard for people to give. And we get the unconditional love from our pets, especially. And so I feel like, one of the most important things that we're going to be talking about in the course about love is how do we get into that place of unconditional love? How is it that we get there? Because that's the place where we get very clear communication. And I know anybody who knows about Anna's work experiences that she gets very clear information. And I know, Anna, would you like to talk a little bit about that state of consciousness of love that you go into when you connect with animals at that level?
Well, although a lot of the ideas about telepathic communication tend to involve the mind and, mental telepathy and all of this, it really is a matter of the heart. And I don't just mean that, that organ pumping more or less in the center of our chest. It really is us coming into that more spacious and holistic way of being inside ourselves, where we know connection. And only when I'm in that state can I be clear what is truly coming from the animal or what their truth is compared to what might be my stuff or my ideas. So you're right, Brad. We do experience unconditional love from our animals, and it's amazing how unconditionally they do love us, even in the face of us bestowing and showering and even stifling them with our kind of love, our human kind of love. And we might think we're loving them by cuddling them too much, or dressing them up, or you know, you're just doing all sorts of human kinds of things to them, giving them treats that are really, really unhealthy for them, full of sugar and additives and so on. So we might think that's love and what it looks like to us. And there's just a whole lot of projection going on. Loving another isn't about doing for them what we would like to receive. That's just projecting. Unconditionally loving another is hearing and accepting what they would like and what their needs are, even if they're very different to your own or go against what you would prefer or what is convenient for you. And so that's where the clarity comes in the interspecies communication space. So I just want to also kind of reality check everyone. It's not as if just because I've been doing this for 20 years that when I enter a telepathic communication, all is blissfully quiet on my inner mental landscape and I only perceive the animal's truth. Not at all. I'm also aware of the answers I might be hoping for. I'm aware of what I might know about the species or that individual animal and my ideas of them, or what I think is better for them. So for any given question, all of these things are on my mental landscape. And that can make it tough to hear what their answer is against the backdrop of all that noise. But the clearer I am as a channel and the more I'm in my heart, I can sort of sense the quality that is behind the content of whatever I'm receiving. And that quality that is more spacious and where I don't have an internal reaction, that quality that's indescribable shows me that is just pure truth and not the more sort of heavy thinking that I might be doing. And sometimes it's difficult. It takes quite a bit of discipline. An example can be when I had to move back to the city a couple of years back, and I had 3 lovely cat companions who were living with me on a farmstead with free rein during the day and lots of fantastic explorations on the forest edge. And so I explained to each of the 3 cats what the new living circumstance was going to be like, the long travel to get to the city and living in a suburb and the relatively more confined quarters. And I gave each of them the choice. Now for me, of course, I want all of my cat friends to come with me and for me to still enjoy having them around for us, to be living together. But to be fair, I gave them all the choice. And 2 out of the 3 said, yes, absolutely. And the 3rd one, the big boy cat named Amazon, he said, I want to stay here. I love my lifestyle. I want to walk around the other tenants and check on the dog and go sit under that tree. And I want to do that every day. And so I explained that, it's a choice between that or living with me. And the feeling in his response, well, he says, I want both. and I explained why I had to move to the city, and he's like, And so it came down to on the morning of departure, with a friend of mine helping, we loaded up the car, and the 2 girl cats climbed in, ready to go, and he sat outside and was like, and it was really real. He saw we were really leaving, and he turned around and walked away and sat under a further away tree to watch us leave. And that was something that in my unconditional love for him, I was honor bound to accept and to live. And so where he stayed, living with a neighbor and a friend, is a lot more wild. And 2 months later, he was taken by a caracal, by a lynx. 3 in the afternoon, he was taken by a desperately hungry lynx after some wildfires that had happened in the previous year. And it was painful but quick. And I didn't then have any regret, despite my sadness and my sense of loss and so on. I recognized those as personal and attachment based. And if I really still just tuned into what he had wanted and honoring his wishes and loved him unconditionally enough to let him go while he was still alive, he got to have the quality of life that he wanted. He got to live his choice. And that's how I could best have been in service to him. So the point is, process-wise, for even me still to get over my ideas about something or my own personal wishes, and to discern on the inner landscape what is truly coming from the animal versus what might be something that I have emotions attached with, or a movement within me. If I start swinging and have a sense of being for something and against something else, then I know that that's me.
Wow, so Amazon state, and that must be hard to really, and it's harder when you're working with your own animals, isn't it, to overcome those personal agendas and personal desires that would come with that. And what you were saying,
yes, and not even to overcome them, but to actually even identify them in the first place. And that's where some of the tools that Brad brings to the course that we're offering are so useful, because we don't even know not to, you know, attach to these things or get over them until we've identified them as being not real, and to, you know, to work with those projections, to come into a state of witness. That's so important, so important.
And Brad, that's where there's this dissolution of ego, would you call it, where we drop the ego, and perhaps you could share a little about what kind of relationship, where does the ego come in? Maybe where it shouldn't come in, or where does it interfere perhaps with the telepathic communication? How does that sort of work or not work together?
So yes, I'm happy to talk about the role of the ego. And I think first, the most important thing is to actually define what the ego is, because we often hear different things about it. And, you know, loosely translated, it's our personality. It's the thoughts and the feelings and habits. It's the physical body, it's our memories, all the things that make up what we call the personality. And essentially the ego is the lens through which we interpret our world, and through which we interact with the world. And so it's also a mirror of the world to us. And what happens is that the lens of the ego gets clouded by our patterning, our childhood patterning, wounding that happens, especially during childhood. And so the clearer the ego, the clearer is our lens through which we see the world. And the clearer and shinier the mirror through which the world is reflected back to us. So the clearer the ego, the better our ability to communicate, whether that's with animals or telepathic communication or verbal communication or whatever. It's because that in that place of clarity, we can see and feel the truth of any situation. It's not clouded up by our distorted lens, so to speak. Does that match with your experience, Anna? The clearer you feel, the more you can experience truth.
Yes, absolutely. Again, it's like a filtering process on the inside, and it's pretty busy in my head a lot of the time anyway. And so there's always a lot of data floating around in there. And the clearer the ego is, the more background it can be, at least. So I'm not, as I said earlier, I think it's not all blissfully peaceful on the inside, and there's just this one beautiful drop in the pond of truth. But at least the other little ripples in that happening, I know to be just stuff, and it allows the clarity to stand out more. And again, this is where our good intentions and our compassion for the animals motivate us to become clearer, motivate us to be, you know, as on-piste as possible, motivate us to, as accurately as possible, reflect them if we are wanting to understand what they're saying or have to translate that or pass it on. But it's also just so great for any relationship, you know, with another human, with the animals, with our environment. It puts us as the human in a resonant state with those others, because the whole rest of the natural world and all the animals are existing in that egoless state. That's their baseline. And so the more we can help that become our human baseline, the more we just experientially re-enter that community of all beings, and it becomes a very natural flow. We're not going to go around with a notebook and pen initiating conversations with every beetle or spider or, you know, fern that's unfolding in the garden. We don't even have a cognitive way of approaching connection when we are in a more egoless state. We are just immersed in that web of life. And if something important is happening to or for any other being on that web of life, that little strand of that web vibrates as if it's been plucked with their thought, with their feeling, with their need. And to the extent that we are knowingly connected, instead of just very much in the background of our awareness automatically connected, to the extent that we are knowingly connected, we will be able to perceive that vibration coming through the field of shared thoughts and feelings.
Really is about clear perceptions. And the more I hear the two of you speak and share, the more I also hear that it really is about coming back to our true nature and letting go of everything else that is misidentifying with other aspects of what we think we are or have been taught that we are. So really coming into this clarity. And Anna, I'd really like to know, how did you learn these techniques? How did you learn this practice or this I know it's not a gift because it's natural, so I don't want to call it a gift, but it does really come across that way. It's something very special. How did you learn?
So perhaps it is about relearning it or remembering. I like to use the word remembering. So again, it isn't some mystery, technique reserved only for the few, because it is naturally how the blueprints of our brains as humans are designed. It is the template of how we are structured. We're not as different from other beings as we like to think, and we're certainly not as superior as we might imagine with our cognitive skills and so on and our technologies. Intelligence in life expresses in many different ways, and the key there is different, just different ways, but it doesn't make different expressions or forms of intelligence more or less valuable than any other. And so it is natural for all of us. And yes, perhaps I've become particularly refined in it for, I don't know, a couple of reasons I can think of. One is that it's a match for my passions, again, for my love, for the love of animals. I've been motivated to make this what I spend time and energy on. And I don't mean the tip of the iceberg that people might see. This is not a glamorous lifestyle of dashing around to exotic locations, having, rainbow and unicorn conversations with animals who then transform because they've been touched by the, the mind of a telepathic communicator and all of that egotistical hogwash. It's not at all. It's what the majority of my time and energy has been spent on is the work on self with a lowercase s. And that's how I have remembered my own true nature, as you alluded to. And that's, I like the word remember too, because it's like we are again becoming a member of the community of life. We are being remembered into community and into connection. So sure, I studied interspecies telepathic communication through the Assisi International Animal Institute in California, starting in the year 2000, and did my case studies that were, double blind and set up in such a way to offer a technical and empirical validation, or the opposite, right? For us to be coached around how close or not we were to being accurate on what we were receiving. And so all of that was a cognitively driven exercise, or a couple of years of working on that. But what really quantum leaped my progress into clarity was engaging with things like meditation, just as a stillness practice. I took up transcendental meditation for a little while to come into that state of experience of dropping into the unified field of consciousness. I became interested in the more yogic psychologies and philosophies, like Advaita Vedanta, which means the non-duality, the not two, the path of oneness. And then the real quantum leap came when I discovered Brad and Leslie's work too, very artfully and in beautifully holistic ways, finding ways to work with the ego. Again, not wanting to make the ego bad, but to integrate and just become clear about these different aspects of self that are playing out. And so the rest of the iceberg that I spend time and energy on to refine my focus and clarity and usefulness as a telepathic communicator is the work with self. And that is spending time perhaps reflecting on thoughts and feelings that I have, emotions, responses to situations, unpacking what's really going on, getting into the strong observations of being in witness. And when difficult stuff comes up for me, as it does emotionally because of the nature of the wildlife work I do, and the distress and mayhem and murder and destruction that they're experiencing, which is difficult for them, when I experience their emotions and have my own feelings about it, I, offline from the communication, work with some of these techniques to clear and to find clarity again, and to identify and invoke healthier, ascended and more balanced states of being that allow me to remain connected and not separated even out of difficulty or out of fear. So that's the behind the scenes of an interspecies communicator, is the continual, I'm sure it's going to be lifelong, working with myself. And sometimes it's in the form of play. It's about embodiment as well, and moving and being in nature and absorbing the medicine from the wild ones themselves as well.
Yeah, it's a very deep state of empathy. Yes. Brad, I'm sure you work with that, do you? Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that the point that Anna just made is so important, to talk about the joy of it, you know, the fun of it, the play of it, because we hear this concept of the ego, and there's so there's so much fear around that of, oh, we have to get rid of it, we have to stop it. And that's not it at all. It can be a lot of fun, and it can be a joyful experience. And in fact, the truth is, it's all about love. This is what we keep coming back to. The more that we can live in love, the easier all of this becomes. It's a lot about self-acceptance and self-love, as well as the love of humans and the natural world and all of it.
And you know what? All of the non-humans too completely love or get excited about us returning to these natural states of being. They'll literally show up more, they'll cross your path more, they'll come closer without risk of being showered with sloppy human love, as I've heard you refer to it, Jenny. They'll be relaxed and open in our presence, and just happy that we've kind of woken up to the here and the now and can just be present with what is, without making big stories in our head about them or about how difficult it is to connect. So that in itself is so joyful. It's like they will have a little party, like, yay, welcome to our tea party, welcome to embodied life and just being fully here.
I remember in one of our conversations when you mentioned that one of the greatest compliments we can ever receive is when a wild animal goes about his or her natural ways in your presence. Now, that in itself is a real blessing, isn't it? Now, there's a blessing from nature, which brings me to think of module number 6, another beautiful title, beautiful course throughout, by the way. Everything about it is just so beautiful. And in this module, you've called it Blessings of Nature. Maybe you could describe exactly what you mean by that.
Well, there's 2 aspects to it, and the one is, which is how most of us humans like to think, in even our appreciation for the natural world, we look at how that can bless us, how we receive the blessings of nature, and we implore or pray to or do ceremony around receiving blessings. And as Brad's been pointing out, that fantastic unconditional loving state of nature will have them so graciously continue to give. But we decided on the blessings of nature because it can be a 2-way thing. We also need to look how we, the human, might be blessing nature, how nature is blessed by us also, by us being in a clear and clean state and open and present.
Oh, I love that, because quite often I see the opposite, where nature is not being blessed by us humans. We're leaving our rubbish around, and these things are happening. And when you speak of that, of how we can bless nature by being in that clear state, it really shows that possibility of a beautiful reciprocal, and also the importance of learning this, of learning how to become clear and still, and to be with nature in that way. It is important, isn't it? I mean, maybe you can share some more about that. Why is it so important that we learn to bless nature in this way?
Well, I can add something to what you've both been talking about. To me, one of the gifts that we both give and receive with nature, the blessings, is it's the gift of stopping and being still and listening. Because in our world today, the acceleration is such, and our busyness is such, and we're just addicted to the busyness and the doing all the time. And when we have the magic moment to be in nature and with nature, we can just stop and relax and be still. And what a gift that is, both to us and to nature. And I guess what I would add from my perspective is that gift of relaxation that we receive from nature is so important, because it is the foundation of the path. You could call it the path of awakening, the path of discovering who we truly are, the path of our connection, rediscovering our connection with the web of life, and our ability to communicate with other species intuitively. Relaxation is the foundation for all of that. It's the foundation for inner peace. And the inner peace is what leads us to unconditional love and to joy as well. So, and I would say that's the highest manifestation of our human experience, is joy and love. And so what better blessing can we receive from nature if we can learn to just stop and be still and listen? You know, if we have the ears to hear, that's the gift that we both give and receive.
And picking up from that, when we are in those states, another important benefit we can bring to life herself is the ability to then co-create with our non-human brothers and sisters the path forward in our little microclimate, micro-ecosystem, in our little backyard, all the way up to the global environmental and sustainability and climate change amelioration, topics. Because the path forward is not going to be science only by any means, even the conservation sciences. So I feel it's also important for us to be able to join hands again with the non-humans to co-create whatever these versions of futures are going to be, by being able to be still enough to deeply hear and know what they are needing and also bringing to the table. We can save so much time. We can save decades if we're not going to be relying only on empirical science to go and measure, observe, eventually write papers that are then peer reviewed and then published. And by then, it's 10 years later and things have changed. Imagine if we could invite the non-humans to all the councils and the boardrooms and the meetings in which decisions are made, and co-create life on Earth together. That to me is a fabulous vision of what's possible.
Just on that, what are some of the messages that the non-humans would bring in as an example to the co-creation of this beautiful harmony that you describe, this beautiful connection?
I don't know. I haven't asked any. I'm serious. And I'm not going to wonder what would they bring, because that would be my mind again. So can't answer that. I'll have to ask a few and get back to you. I'll just go interview some animals.
Fair enough.
But what I do know is that what a number of the large species do say so far. Well, they express their compassion for us and how we humans have lost our way. And gosh, the elephants could all have trampled any humans that come into contact with, or villages, trampled it to smithereens by now. Bees, we all know how challenged bees are on the planet. Goodness me, they've just been turned into slaves, working in commercial settings. And a lot of the species of bees are stinging species. They could have just decided to have a revolutionary uprising and sting every human they came into contact with. But because they're unconditional loving, they feel how we've lost our way, and they're not into retribution. So that's a good start. But yeah, I haven't asked any what their co-creative things might be, so I don't know what they would say.
Just trying to envisage a board of lions and hyenas and humans all sitting together.
That's a great image. I love that.
Perhaps a dog and cat in there as well, some domestic, some wild. And imagine the intelligence, the incredible intelligence on how we can all cohabitate and co-create together. Do you have any spontaneous communications that you might like to share, and anything that just comes to mind that just maybe show us how it's happening for us all the time? Brad, I know you speak about this as well. It's happening. It's whether we want to listen or whether we choose to listen.
It really is part of daily life. It's every aspect of the animate world is radiating its truth the whole time. And we really are speaking about interspecies communication. So an easy example I can give is walking past a plant, perhaps a potted plant in your apartment, and just getting the feeling that it's thirsty, getting the feeling that it's dry. And I do say feeling. It's not going to be a thought that will come up in your mind like, gee, I wonder when I last watered the plant. It's not going to be a cognitive thought that you've initiated. It's going to be maybe your body even just finding itself going off track from the straight line to the kitchen and moving towards the plant to go and inspect it, because you've been called. You've been called by that state of thirst, which is a need that is being radiated. And if you're walking in the straight line to the kitchen, distracted or with your phone or thinking about the next work meeting, you're not going to hear that subtle truth that is being broadcast into the space. And these are beautiful ways to practice with these things in everyday life. It also helps us demystify this whole field of telepathic communication and not make it some seemingly unattainable goal or something big and fancy. Pay attention on the little daily level. Pay attention. Feel where the bugs or the birds might be, in the garden. If you're driving somewhere or on a train or a bus, look out the window and look up to the poles, the telephone poles and the electricity poles that you're passing in these structures. Notice where the birds are and send them a little energetic greeting silently just from your heart. And right there, you've made a new friend. So these are the spontaneous ways I like to be connected in my daily life.
One time I was sitting at my desk working, and I found myself get up and walk into a completely different part of the house to feed my cat, and she was sitting there waiting for me. And I thought, oh.
Exactly. So often what we think is our idea is actually only us finally having got the message that they've been in a very focused way sending to us.
Yeah, so what a wonderful, wonderful course the two of you have brought together for the love of animals. I want to say thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us in this webinar, Brad, before we close?
Let me see. Well, I guess what I'd like to say is that my heart is filled with gratitude. I'm just so grateful that we can share this and that we can have this opportunity to be together, to be with Anna, to be with all of you, whoever decides to sign up for the course. I just get this feeling that we're going to be creating a field of love and joy. And this is an antidote to what's happening in our world today. And so I'm just very excited and very happy and really looking forward to working with this. And I want to thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much for helping to produce this course and to host us. We're deeply grateful. And for the cats and the dogs and the birds that joined us on our call today.
And thank you so much. No, it really, truly is a beautiful course. And when I started to become involved, I just felt it. It just goes straight to the heart. It really does. All of your intentions, all of your integrity is so absolutely clear. So thank you for everything you've shared. There was a lot of value in this webinar tonight, and there is an enormous amount of value in the course. And so I just want to thank everybody who's here listening to this webinar today for joining us, and to let you know that Anna and Brad have created a brand new online course that we've been touching on throughout this webinar, called For the Love of Animals. It is a call to the heart, and it is a 6-week online training series that is designed to guide you toward deepening your states of clear intuition, love, and telepathic communication with all living beings. Much of what we've been discussing in this webinar. The course includes pre-recorded video trainings with Anna and Brad, and specifically designed practices and guided meditations, as well as 2 live webinars with Brad and Anna, where you can submit any questions you might have about the teachings. The course is available now for registration.
There's a great conversation happening on the earth. All animals in the natural world are talking with us all the time. Are you listening?
And what would it take to really hear what is being communicated? If you'd like to join us on this journey in finding out what it takes to quiet the mind and come into direct knowing, we'd love to have you along on the journey.